Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
You know, the media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere. On air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with locations up and down the East Coast, from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools. Redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Live from Studio C at the Cherry Hill campus for the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, it's All Noise Radio's Sports Talk with the Sport.
Down goes Frazier. He scores. High fly ball into right field. She is gone.
Welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with the Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, if you want to get in on the conversation here, if you want to get in and chime in with your comments, 856-330-4749, or, of course, you could always chime in with a chat. Send me a text message. Send it to Facebook.com and search for Sports Talk with. Send me a tweet on Twitter at the Yossi G. Plenty of things to get into with not a lot of time, as always. First things first. All right, anybody watching last night's games in the ALCS and the NLCS certainly were in for a treat there with what happened. I mean, finally, the Los Angeles Dodger bats came alive. 4 home runs they hit against the St. Louis Cardinals in their Game 5, keeping it alive, 6-4 victory, forcing Game 6 against the St. Louis Cardinals, with their ace Clayton Kershaw going on again, another back against the wall, all hands on deck. There is no tomorrow. Game 6 going on short rest, 3 days rest to pitch for them in Game 6 against the Cardinals in order to force the decisive Game 7 to go to the pennant, claiming the NL pennant, go to the World Series claiming the NL pennant. And, of course, in the ALCS, it was pretty fun. If you were a Detroit fan last night, the Detroit Tigers besting Boston in Detroit 7-3. But the night really ended quite early for the Red Sox. I mean, they gave it a little bit of a go towards the end of the game, make it a little interesting, but the game was a lot farther away than the score actually showed. 7-3, got kind of interesting at the end there with the Detroit closers not necessarily, Joaquin Benoit not really sure of himself after giving up that home run, that grand slam to Big Papi, to David Ortiz when the Red Sox beat the Tigers in Game 3. Last night, Jim Leyland really thought, hey, maybe I'll bring him in. We have a 5-run lead at that point in time, and, it'll maybe help him kind of assert himself. But of course he gave up some runs, and I don't know, we'll see what happens. Maybe if he has to come in for a save situation in Game 5 when the Tigers are up by 1 run, that may really do some damage mentally. Will he be mentally capable of retiring the Red Sox lineup without giving up a run? That'll be interesting to see. But nonetheless, the Tigers are tied now with the Red Sox going into Game 5. It'll be interesting to see. 5 runs in the second inning kind of put Boston away early. But that being said, the ALCS and the NLCS both. Look, in both championship series in this year's postseason, they've been kind of a little lackluster. There's nothing really. The Red Sox really are the only team that kind of have that pop, that bang, that in-your-face mentality. And like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, the baseball playoffs always kind of seemed to be more interesting when there was a story or a storyline with a team that you could follow that was more than just that stretched a little bit beyond just the local, the local area. In this, right now, the Final Four that you have in the baseball playoffs, in the MLB playoffs, really Boston is kind of the only team that has a little bit of pizzazz. I mean, outside of Los Angeles, in Los Angeles itself, right? The Dodgers, the storyline there essentially is Yossi Puig. The Cuban defector, what he's done, tearing up the league since he came up his call up on June 3rd. The thing, though, is that not many people really can relate to Yossi Puig. When you have the Yankees, for example, in the playoffs, you could always relate to them because there's always something going on, always something there behind closed doors, and it kind of reminds me of like the Kardashians. I mean, you can't stand watching that show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, but you still tune in because there's something that is so absurdly ridiculous that is going to happen on the show that you just can't help yourself but watch. That's how I felt that even if you were not a Yankees fan, or a Yankee hater for that matter, because then you'll tune in as well. Even if you didn't like the sport, but you always felt kind of intrigued to see how some of the off-field issues would kind of transpose themselves on the field and how they would play out. You had Alex Rodriguez and everything that surrounded him and still surrounds him to this day, how that would play out with his teammates. You had Roger Clemens back in a couple years ago, how all that plays out with his teammates. You had Andy Pettitte, of course, coming back to the Yankees after the whole steroid thing, how that plays out with his teammates. Derek Jeter, how all of the, you can call it the women of the world, if you may, how all that plays out with his teammates when he may come to a meeting late the next day because he was out partying too long the previous night. But with Jeter, most of the time, more often than not, he played well. So the question's always and then of course you have the Yankees. It's a cast of superstars being put together on a team to win a championship. How they all affect one another, as well as the manager, be it Joe Girardi or Joe Torre or whoever it was at that specific time. Well, talking about teams and how personalities kind of affect, player-coach relationships. You have Josh Freeman, who now finds himself in Minnesota. He got kicked out of Tampa, essentially, got cut from the team because of his whole, shall we say, discontent with the coaching staff, and he was cut. Minnesota picked him up. They named him the starter already for this weekend's game, Monday Night Football starter against the New York Football Giants. And you look at both teams, all right, and you take Josh Freeman, and so far he's been saying everything right. He's been doing everything right. The teammates of his new teammates now on Minnesota have nothing but the world to say of him. But of course, we'll see what happens, how that translates to on-the-field play. The Giants have yet to win a game, have been disastrous on defense, 32nd in the league, dead last. Offense isn't that much better. They're 30th out of 32 teams. But they still have pride. Monday Night Football always seems to be that time that you are now performing on a national stage in front of a national audience. It always seemed like people and players all, the stage is magnified, you show up. You come to play even more so than on a regular Sunday afternoon because everyone's watching. There are no other games going on. It's just you and the other team, and that's it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, you compare both teams, there really isn't much to be said. I mean, Brandon Jacobs, you would have thought his career was done, but he's now finds himself as being the featured back for the New York Giants playing against Minnesota in that game. And you have Adrian Peterson on the other side. You have Josh Freeman as well for Minnesota. On the other side, Eli Manning, who's been having a disastrous year. But still, that being the case, if New York wants to win the division, because that's the only way they're going to get into the postseason, that's the only way they're going to qualify for the playoffs in the NFC, they have to win the NFC East. Right now, they're 3 games behind both Dallas, and Minnesota. So they'll be 4 games behind somebody after Sunday unless they win. If they win and they beat Minnesota, it'll start at least some positive vibes around that clubhouse, around the New York Giants football program. It'll start some positive, steps towards in the right direction, and it will probably give them some sort of starting block where to get. It's always that first win of the season always seems to be the hardest one to get, especially in the NFL. But once you get that first one, kind of like you have the monkey off your back now, and you're able to try to build off of some of those positives that you found in that game. Mind you, the Minnesota Vikings have arguably the best running back in the NFL in Adrian Peterson. And even though they only have 1 win for the season, they still are a pretty tough task, pretty tall task, pretty good team in and of itself. So the Giants are depleted, the Vikings are depleted, but they have something there. At the end of the day, the Giants didn't win 2 Super Bowls for nothing. They didn't win it for no reason. Coach Coughlin, Tom Coughlin, Eli Manning, their guys are there. They come, they play. It'll be a fun game to watch, certainly, because this is really a must-win game for both. Minnesota, they find themselves in the same division with the Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers. They also need to start winning games. So it'll certainly be a lot of fun because I think between Leslie Frazier, who's the coach for Minnesota, and Tom Coughlin, coach for the New York Giants, they're both going to make sure that is instilled in their players' minds and mindset that this is a game that we need. We must win this game in order to make a positive effort, to have that positive mentality to move forward, that we can possibly, and I use this word very cautiously, possibly take the division, take the divisional crown, and go into the postseason. It's a start. You got to start somewhere, right? I think the worst thing that could happen is a tie, because that's just awful. You don't win, you don't lose. Nothing positive comes from a tie. A lot of negative can come from a tie, and it's really bad. It would bode very well, obviously, for the Giants. I'm originally from New York. I don't care for the Giants necessarily, but that I would be rooting for here. Giants in Minnesota, it would be a lot of fun to see what happens in that NFC East if the Giants were to start winning. You have the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys both right now top of tied for first place in the East. And you have Washington Redskins not too far behind. Giants lagging way in the back of the pack. But if they start to win games, then it'll get very interesting come December, come the last final stretch of the season, to who takes the crown in that division. Coming up soon on the show, we're going to have Alan Krita. He's a contributing writer for the NHL for the New York Times, and Ari Bluestein, the voice of the Drexel Dragons and CEO of SFBN High School Sports Network and our Philadelphia Sports Insider, will be joining us here on the program with Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi to discuss what is going on with the Flyers. What the heck? These guys, they 0-3, they fire the coach, bring in a new guy, win the first game, and then again 0-3. They're 1-6. What's going on with them? Was that the right move? Where exactly do the Flyers go from here? As well as we'll talk with some little 76ers basketball. Will they win 25 games like Sir Charles Barkley likes to believe that they can? Or will they fail to even get to that benchmark? Among, of course, the big question of the weekend. Nick Foles, can he lead the Philadelphia Eagles to a victory over the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday? You're listening to Sports Talk with the Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Honey, again you're sitting here sulking?
I hate my job and I don't know what to do to change it.
Get off the couch and go check out the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
The Connecticut School of Broadcasting? What's that?
The Connecticut School of Broadcasting offers a career and lifestyle change through a broadcasting experience you won't ever forget. Log on to GoCSB.com to find out how a career in broadcasting is for you and not just the people you see on TV or hear on the radio. CSB focuses on many aspects of real-world broadcasting, and their knowledgeable instructors teach you through a hands-on approach so you're in the studio in no time. To find out how CSB can help you work in an industry you love, call 1-800-TV-RADIO or check us out online at GoCSB.com.
Why work 50 weeks a year for a 2-week vacation when you can enjoy your job every day?
Don't just sit there. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com.
Thanks, CSB.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Welcome back to Sports Talk with the Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, you want to chime in on the conversation, 856-330-4749. Let me know your thoughts about what you feel will happen this weekend. Eagles, Cowboys, who will win that one? Jets, Patriots, who's going to be victorious? And, of course, Giants and Minnesota on Monday Night Football, the throwdown between both teams who must win in order to stay alive in the respective division races for the crown, for any shot at all, remote as it may seem, to win that division and propel them into the playoffs. Joining us right now on All Noise Radio, joining us right now on Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi, he is the voice of the Drexel Dragons and CEO of SFBN High School Sports Network and our Philadelphia Sports Insider, Ari Bluestein. Ari, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Yossi.
My pleasure, Ari. So let's get off straight off the bat. A lot of people have been talking this past week. Of course, before we all found out it was going to be Nick Foles being the starter. Of course, the question Nick or Vic, but that's kind of off the table right now. The question that everybody wants to know is who's going to win the football game between the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, it's a great question. You've got two pretty proficient offenses, and you've got two pretty bad defenses, especially in the pass game. And you've got two pretty accurate quarterbacks in Nick Foles and Tony Romo going against each other. Now, Cowboys definitely have the edge in terms of weaponry for their quarterback. You have Jason Witten, Des Bryant, rookie Terrence Williams is playing well. Miles Austin is back. Not sure if he'll be a factor. He certainly wasn't last week. But I think you've got better weapons, even though Deshaun Jackson is probably the best weapon playing in this game. Other than Deshaun Jackson, there isn't really too much past that in terms of big-time threats for the Eagles. I think defensively is what this game is going to come down to. Who is going to be able to stop the opposing offense on that last drive in the fourth quarter? There's going to be a lot of passing going on between both teams. I think the edge in the run game certainly goes to the Eagles with DeMarco Murray out, or at least the doubtful, most likely won't play, and LaShawn McCoy, the leading rusher in the NFL, and certainly leading yards from scrimmage as well in the NFL. So I think ultimately the Eagles are going to pull it out, and that's just because they're at home. I think Romo will get rattled by the home crowd towards the end. He'll throw a dumb interception in the fourth quarter, and that'll lead to potentially a game-winning field goal. I think this game is going to be in the 30s, maybe something like 37-34 Eagles. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a very good game.
Well, we certainly have seen the capabilities of Nick Foles the last couple of weeks when he came in to take over from Mike Vick against the Giants, and, of course, the start last week against Tampa, where he was finally able to connect on the deep ball, both to Riley Cooper as well as to Deshaun Jackson. He was having a lot of issues with that last year when he played those 5-6 games towards the end of the season when Vick went down with the injury as well. He's having a little bit of difficulty connecting with that deep ball, but he showed that he has that ability to actually throw long passes and throw them accurately. Certainly will be a lot of fun to watch this game because both teams have a lot playing for on the line. It's been a long time since the Eagles and the Cowboys actually played a meaningful game where there was a lot at stake and both teams were relatively good. So it'll certainly be a lot of fun to watch Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. Now, in terms of another team, and we're talking about a fall from grace here right now, at least at this point of the season, the Flyers go 0-3, fire their coach Peter Laviolette, hire a new coach in Craig Berube, win that first game, and then go 0-3, and they're now sitting at 1-6. Is this a coach's problem, or was the team perhaps constructed wrong to begin with, and that will fall on the GM, Paul Holmgren's lap?
I think it should fall on the GM. Peter Laviolette is a very good coach. Sometimes in hockey, you just need to, turn the page and get a new voice in there. I don't know if Craig Berube was the answer. He was a marginal hockey player. He was one of those goon type of guys, got a lot of penalty minutes. So I don't know if that's what the team needs. And you take a look at the GM and what they've done. Some of the decisions that we thought were maybe good really weren't. You take a look at the goaltending situation. They bring in Brzgalov. He's a bust. Then they find a way to bring in Bobrovsky. They find this hidden gem, trade him for nothing, wins the Vezina Trophy last year, and is now one of the top young goaltenders in the league. You look at the Jeff Carter, Mike Richards trade. Oh, they need to trade him. You need a change of scenery. You need to bring in some good new young players like Jake Voracek, Sean Couturier, Wayne Simmons, Braden Shen. All those guys came in here via those trades. And some of them are nice players, like Couturier is a nice player, Shen's a nice player, but they're not game changers. And Carter and Richards go ahead and win a Stanley Cup with the LA Kings. So I think that they made a lot of bad decisions, the Flyers front office. Obviously, the injury to Pronger kind of screwed things up on the defense, and I don't necessarily fault the general manager for what's happened on the blue line for the Flyers. And they are struggling with defensemen right now, but they also can't score. And I think they just can't find the right combination of lines. And I think Claude Giroux is really being focused on by opposing defenses, and he's not really getting free to do his thing. And nobody else is really stepping up. Simmons and Voracek had good years last year, but who knows how consistent that'll be from year to year. So I blame the coach a little bit, but I think this is the general manager's fault, much like the Phillies, where, okay, the coach falls, GM is next if things don't turn around. And I think that's what's going to come at the end of the year if the Flyers really finish dismally, which they're on track to do right now.
We're talking with Ari Bluestein, the voice of the Drexel Dragons and CEO of SFBN, the high school sports network here in Philly, and of course our Philadelphia sports insider. Ari, now you're in terms of the coach, though, in terms of Craig Berube, do you think that he should really kind of go away from some of the things that were tried during during preseason, during training camp, where the Flyers were what Peter Laviolette seemed to have been doing was mixing and matching kind of the different lines and seeing what would work versus keeping some of that consistency that was there last season on some of those lines, especially the power play and the penalty kill. Do you think he should focus more on, all right, we're trial by fire, we're just going to have to deal with it, go back to some of those lines where some of the guys felt comfortable with their line mates that you had last season, instead of trying to tinker and mingle around with the different lines?
Well, I don't know. I don't mind the tinkering around with the different lines, because last year, while they did score more goals than what they're coming up with this year, they still didn't make the playoffs, and they didn't finish very well. A lot of the issues were on defense last year. It was also consistent scoring too, although goaltending was an issue last year as well. I still see some tinkering with the lines. Like you're seeing McGinn getting thrown in there at the top line, and he seems to be doing pretty well up there. But I don't know. I think you got to find the right combination of lines still. I think Berube is still going to experiment with that a little bit because they're not generating enough offense, especially on the power play. It's bad. So I don't know. We'll see what I know. Berube said he was going to instill some new schemes in there, change some things that Laviolette was doing. We'll see if it works. I don't know. I don't think the talent is there either. And again, that brings us back to the GM. I don't think the talent, there's not enough super stud scorers on this team. There's a lot of nice complementary players, but there aren't that, other than Giroux, there's no, like, perennial all-star type of candidates on this squad.
All right, now again, we're talking with Ari Bluestein here, the voice of the Drexel Dragons and CEO of SFBN, the High School Sports Network, and our Philadelphia Sports Insider. Ari, you're talking about now a lot of, all-star caliber players versus, kind of fill-ins or complementary type of players. The 76ers, the Philadelphia 76ers, right now, really the only player that a lot of people are plugging in to say that, hey, he's probably an all-star type player who hasn't played one professional basketball second is Nerlens Noel, as well as you can probably say Evan Turner as like a maybe, like a 1A type of a guy. At this point in time, we also know, of course, with the 76ers, it almost seems to be that they are not going to win as many games as people were hoping that they would be able to win. So much so, Charles Barkley went so far as to say 25 games that they're going to win this season. And a lot of people are saying that's a stretch. People are saying that it's anywhere between 15 and 20 games, and getting down at those numbers, you're talking about record-setting, really, really, on the negative side of the basketball. How good or lack thereof do you see the 76ers being this year?
Oh, they're going to be bad, Yossi. They're going to be bad. I think 25 is a real reach. They have not looked great in the preseason. They're using a lot of, journeyman, young type of players. I think ultimately they're going to win between 10 to 15 games. I don't really see them beating too many teams, especially with Nerlens Noel not in the lineup until maybe February. This is on purpose what they're doing. They will come out and say that they're losing and they're tanking the season, but by trading Drew Holiday and not signing any big-time free agents, that's what they're doing. You have Evan Turner and Thad Young and Spencer Hawes, who will return to the starting lineup. They're all nice, complimentary. Hawes will start at center. He's not really a starting center in the NBA. Turner, borderline starter, starting small forward. We'll see how he develops this year. Thad Young, a nice tweener, hustle player. But, you can't build a team around any of these guys. And then, of course, you have the draft picks, Michael Carter-Williams, the point guard, who's going to go through his growing pains. And Nerlens Noel won't be around till mid-year, maybe. But I think it's good for the organization because you've seen the Sixers ever since 2001 when they made the run to the NBA Finals. And that was kind of an accident where they just put together a monster year surrounded by an MVP-caliber play in Allen Iverson and a bunch of role players surrounding him. They made it to the NBA Finals. But other than that, they've been very mediocre for a long time. And you can't win an NBA title with being in the middle because you're not going to get that high draft pick and you're not going to be good enough to attract the high-priced free agents and free up enough salary cap space. So what Sam Hinkie, the general manager, is doing is he's starting over. He's breaking it down, saying, okay, we need to start over. We need to clear some cap space. We need to get some draft picks because that's the way that we're going to get to an NBA championship type of level in 5 to 10 years. So what they're doing this year, I agree with what they're doing. It's for a cause to get to the NBA Finals, in 5 years. So using the Oklahoma City model, and I like it. They're going to be bad this year, but I'm fine with that. And there's going to be a ton of good college players coming out into the draft this next year, and that's the plan. And they're going to build around the guys they draft, Michael Carter-Williams, Nerlens Noel. Turner may or may not be here. Hawes may not be here. Same thing with Thad Young. But, you got to really focus on the development of these young players, and that's what Brett Brown, our new head coach, is going to be doing.
Oh, definitely. It should be a lot of fun. And if you want to go catch some 76ers games, I'm sure they'll be pretty inexpensive this season. They're at the Wells Fargo Center. Ari Bluestein, as always, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. Always appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Yossi. Have a good one.
You as well. That was Ari Bluestein, the CEO of SFBN, High School Sports Network, and the voice of the Drexel Dragons. When we come back, we'll take some of your phone calls. 856-330-4749. You're listening to Sports Talk with the on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
It's been 48 years Connecticut School of Broadcasting has helped place thousands of people, just like you, in exciting careers in radio, television, and the new media. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, our hands-on approach is different. It's designed to have you spend less time in the classroom and more time in the studios. From the first day, you'll work with state-of-the-art equipment. Learn by doing from our team of industry professionals who come from their studios to ours. The best part about it, you'll learn it all in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. So do what I did. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Step into the fast-paced world of the broadcast media. Day and evening classes begin soon. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Get trained and get connected now. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com.
All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.
Welcome back to Sports Talk with the Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, you want to chime in on the conversation, 856-330-4749, or chime in on Twitter, tweet at me at the Yossi G, or send me a message on Facebook, facebook.com/ or either Facebook.com, and then you have to go search for Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi over there. You got the baseball playoffs right now, and some people are kind of saying that, oh, it's not so exciting like me. I'm saying it's not that exciting, and I know that there's some other people who think it's kind of exciting, and of course, we're going to open up the phone lines. You want to talk about it, 856-330-4749. We'll go to those phone lines. We'll go to the phone lines right now. We have Lewis on his cell. Lewis, how are you?
Hey, Sports Rabbi. Always great to be on your show. You are the Sports Rabbi, and it's a pleasure calling from Jerusalem, the Holy Land.
Oh, wow.
This is the best time of the year in sports. Baseball playoffs, NFL action, hockey, basketball right on the court. I just can't get much better than this.
Oh, that's it. All the way in the Holy Land. That's pretty interesting. All right, so we got the baseball playoffs. And what exactly is on your mind? I see on the caller ID here you want to talk a little bit about some Cardinals baseball.
Yeah, the Sports Rabbi. I'm a huge Cardinals fan. I grew up in Arizona, and we didn't have a team until 1998, and my team was the St. Louis Cardinals. So this renaissance. The Cardinals won the World Series 2 years ago. I watched that game with a very good friend of mine at Mike's place. It was awesome. And the Game 6, I'm talking about, of course, David Freese, a home run. And they lose out with Pujols. A lot of people thought they wouldn't be the same. They get to the NLCS last year. This year, they're back in the NLCS. They have a 3-2 lead. And even though they lost Game 5, I'm not worried about it because Game 6 and Game 7, if there is a Game 7, we're in the new Busch Stadium. So I'm really not worried about it. I think they'll wrap it up Shabbat tomorrow. And, Red Sox or the Tigers, I'm fine either way, but I want the Red Sox because the Red Sox have been the best team throughout the year. They're even better than the Cardinals. I have no problem in that. But the saying goes, you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And if the Cardinals are going to win the World Series, I don't want it to be cheap the way it was in 2006 when they had 83 wins. I want them to beat the best team in baseball. So I'm hoping the Red Sox, I know they lost last night, but I'm hoping they take this series. It's been a great series. Big Papi does it again. Detroit's had great pitching, and so I'm hoping the Red Sox win and play the Cardinals in the World Series.
Well, certainly between both series, between Los Angeles and St. Louis, and also with Detroit and Boston, that certainly looks like that's what it's going to be. I mean, Boston is more of a complete team than Detroit is. I mean, by all shapes and sizes, that's exactly what they are. They're never say never, never quit, never. You don't turn the TV off when the Boston Red Sox are playing baseball, especially playoff baseball. In terms of St. Louis, look, they have had their issues, but I believe that they only have to win one of the next two games. Versus Los Angeles must win both if there's going to be obviously Game 6, and then obviously if they win that, then goes Game 7. They have to win both games. But if the Dodgers win Game 6, then the St. Louis Cardinals have a real big issue because you're up 3-1, and here we go again. So certainly the St. Louis Cardinals have to win this Game 6, otherwise the pressure will be monstrous on them. It will be mountainous. It'll be like the size of Busch.
Last year, when we blew the 3-1 lead, the last two games were in San Francisco. And this time they're in St. Louis, so I feel more comfortable with that. Plus, the Cardinals can hit last year, the last three games. it wasn't like they were close, and it wasn't like a break here, break there. I mean, the Cardinals. I'm a Cardinals fan, and they deserve to lose that series with the way they played the last 3 games of that series. So I don't see that happening this time. And people talk about Big Papi's clutchness. The Cardinals have a guy in Carlos Beltran who statistically is the greatest postseason hitter ever when you look at his numbers. And I'm just not worried about it. I'm really not. But look, obviously, winning Game 6 is better than Game 7. You save a pitcher, you're more rested, you get the deal done. So, as a Cardinal fan, I want them to wrap this thing up tomorrow, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you have any other comments to make?
Well, obviously NFL's in full effect, and when it comes to Eagles, it's always, Michael Vick, should he play, should he not play? And I think he should, because he's an entertaining player when he's on. I think he'll have the most, I want to say he had the best chance to win. They have the Giants coming up. It's almost unprecedented. The Giants are 0-6. I don't think that's happened since the 80s.
One second. But before we get into all this stuff, I mean, you mentioned Michael Vick giving the Eagles the best chance to win. I don't see that as being the case if he's not 100% healthy. He's got himself a hamstring injury, and that's why he's hamstrung in order, he can't play the game right now at his full potential. And if you look at him trying to practice, even with the second team, but most of the time he's with the third team, he looks like he's not confident in his throws because he doesn't have the confidence in his leg to be able to move around in the pocket comfortably. Therefore, his throws become affected. Right now, the quarterback for the Eagles right now is Nick Foles. He's accurate.
Nick Foles.
He's accurate. He can throw the football, and that is the number one thing you need in a quarterback is somebody who can make passes. He can throw it, and it's accurate and gets to the receivers, and right now he can do that. Mike Vick can't. So you play Foles until he messes up, and if he doesn't mess up, then you take it all the way.
Sports rabbi, I'll tell you, I guess that's why they call you the sports rabbi. You are the Talmudic scholar of sports. You just convinced me. I'm going to change my mind on what I said 2 minutes ago. I would go with Nick Foles based on what you said. And look, you're right. You take away Michael Vick's mobility, and he's not the same. And Nick Foles, I think everyone agrees, is an overall better passer. Vick's got the intangibles, seems poor when he's healthy, but that has the same problem as you talked about. It's going to really keep him mobile. And last thing I want to say before you let me go, I want to talk about the Patriots, because the Patriots, this happens year after year after year. For some reason, they're not like the chic Super Bowl pick. Like this year, most people have taken the Broncos out of the AFC. The past couple of years, you had the Texans or the Ravens or whatever. The Patriots are going to be there at the end of the day. I'm not saying they'll win the Super Bowl, sure, but if they go to the AFC title game again, I don't think anyone will be surprised. So it's just something I want to say. I hear this on sports talk shows a lot, or other fans say not giving the Patriots the respect. At the end, see what happens after Week 17. Look at the record. Look at Tom Brady's stats. Look where they're in the playoffs, and that really tells you just how good the Patriots are year after year after year. And we, of course, in Israel, are a big fan of the Patriots because of Kraft Stadium. And Mrs. Kraft, rest in peace, obviously, hope they win the Super Bowl.
All right. I have 2 words for you, Lewis.
Yeah.
You're delusional. Okay, you're delusional if you think the Patriots are going to even make a good, healthy run in the postseason, in the playoffs. I forget about making the Super Bowl because that's not happening. But you're delusional if you think that they're going to make the playoffs.
That's what it's all about.
Look at the Patriots
go
for a second.
We'll find out when Shabbat's over. My team's going back to the World Series.
All right, thanks so much.
19th pennant, by the way.
Thank you,
which
Lewis.
is second all time to the New York Yankees and their 27 world titles.
That was fantastic. All right, that was Lewis from Jerusalem. Always, adds to some interesting times. But like I was trying to tell him before he, forced me to cut him off, was that when you have the Patriots as your team, look at all of the receivers. I'm not saying that Tom Brady has not been able to make receivers out of nobody, because he has. Just look at their record. Right now they're 5-1 going up against the New York Jets right this weekend. But they haven't been scoring a lot of points. And in the playoffs, you have to score. They're right now averaging 21 points a game. Last season, they were averaging 35 points a game. Rob Gronkowski is still not back. He's still not cleared to play. They need to get him back in as soon as possible. They need for themselves to get healthy. Their defense took another hit this week with Gerard Mayo now out for the rest of the season on the IR, joining Vince Wilfork. They have to they have to somehow find their collective unit and bring it together, bring it up to par. For the regular season, yeah, they'll probably finish at 11-5. It's not a far cry. I doubt they'll go 10-6 because I think Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, I think that combo is better than that. But once you get to the postseason, it's a whole different ballgame. The stakes are higher. The game seems that much faster. The hits that much harder. It just seems like a different mentality, a completely different game from the regular season to the postseason. So if you want to talk about postseason play, the Patriots have to prove to everybody, myself included, that they can play with the big boys and that they can find some way of scoring more points than they have up until now, and some way of finding a stopgap on the defense, because right now they don't have one. In terms of this week, in terms of the Jets game that they have coming up, Sunday afternoon, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I mean, right now there's a 5-point spread that Rex Ryan has as an underdog, and the Patriots are favored by 5. I think that Rex is going to find a way to keep the game a little closer than the 5-point spread against his nemesis, Bill Belichick, but I don't see the Jets coming out with a victory here. I see the Patriots winning by 4, probably like a 27-23 or something like that, because even though the Patriots suffered another major loss, they still always are able to negate one aspect from their opponent and remove it from the entire equation. You saw it in Atlanta, they took away Julio Jones. You saw last week with New Orleans, they took out Jimmy Graham. No shows. So when you have the Jets, they don't bring that many weapons to the table to begin with. So with that said, you take away the weapons, and they're really backed up. They really have issues once that becomes the case. That's why I see the Patriots winning this game and the Jets kind of spiraling into middledom for the rest of the season. When we come back, we'll bring you Alan Kreda, the contributing NHL writer for the New York Times, here on Sports Talk with the only on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Don't change that dial.
You know, our jobs occupy more than half our waking hours. Shouldn't we be doing something we love? Call Connecticut School of Broadcasting at 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Since 1964, Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami, has helped place thousands of grads as DJs, sportscasters, entertainment reporters, behind the scenes in audio and video production, every aspect of the broadcast media. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has trained men and women of all ages and backgrounds in a matter of months, not years. Learn by doing from area radio and TV pros. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. Day and evening classes begin soon. Get trained. Get connected now. Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
And we're back here, Sports Talk with on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. And one of the things that really is interesting that, you think about a lot of things that have been going on in terms of the NHL. You think of a lot of things that have been going on. We heard a little bit earlier, in the show from our Philadelphia Sports Insider, from the voice of the Drexel Dragons, Ari Bluestein, talking and discussing and disseminating a little bit about what has been going on with the Philadelphia Flyers right now in a showdown against the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Battle of the Keystone State. there are a lot of things that kind of go into the whole team environment, the whole team atmosphere, especially a team that's going through a lot of change, a lot of player changeover, coaching changeover, that sort of thing. Players are not really sure, kind of, they're just kind of figuring out the coach and the new coach and his system and things like that. And obviously, it's a little different from one team from a perspective of, hey, in between seasons where there's a new coach, so you kind of are able to start a new system or start learning a new system from the get-go, from training camp into the preseason. That way you're set up and ready for the regular season when the opening night the puck drops. And on the other side, you have teams that have this happen in middle of the season, even if in the case of the Philadelphia Flyers, there was only 3 games in. Nonetheless, it still is a major learning curve for players, whether it's a rookie player, a 10-year veteran, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be, firstly, that pressure to perform under the new coach, but even more than that, there's also that pressure of learning a new system in a small amount of time, especially if that small amount of time happens to be a day or two. Because suddenly you go from one coach that you had for a couple of years, and 2-3 days later you have a whole different coach, different system, different mentality. It's a lot of sometimes it's a tall task to really ask of some of these players to go ahead and really buy into that system from the get-go, because you're always you are a talented individual. Yeah, you can play the game. That's why you're in the professional ranks. But you have other teams who have a coach, possibly even if that coach is there for a season or two, but they still have that system ingrained a little bit more than you have of this new system right now. So you're, in a sense, playing behind the 8 ball a little bit, and I'm looking at some of the things that have been going on in Philadelphia in terms of the Flyers. It seems more to be a confidence issue and a lack of chemistry. And I had this little chit-chat before with Mo, over the internet spheres, over the text spheres. He was saying, Mo in Philadelphia was saying how, one of our listeners was saying how there has been a lot of these issues, a lot of these problems with the Philadelphia Flyers, and now you suddenly have a team who goes and has this transition in the middle of the season. But that said, also, you have a team like the New York Rangers, take them for example, who had this transition happen, during the offseason, where they went from John Tortorella to Coach Alain Vigneault. And for that and more about the New York Rangers, we bring on right now contributing NHL writer for the New York Times, Alan Kreda. Alan, how are you out there?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very good, Alan. Thanks for taking the time. I understand you're on your way now to the Nassau Coliseum for the Islanders game. What's the perspective on the Islanders, firstly, before we get into the Rangers? What's the perspective for the Islanders entering, they're coming off a pretty good year last year where they finished and they made a little bit of noise towards the end of the season and into the playoffs. Where do you expect the Islanders to finish this year? We have a couple people picking them as dark horses to make the conference finals. Do you see them making it that far?
It's very hard to say, only because last year's success was built on a short season. They certainly showed signs in the second half of that season, making the playoffs, pushing the Penguins to 6. They could have won that series with a bounce here or there, but how will they do over 82 games? That's a big question. That still didn't quite get the secondary scoring they needed to put it to a higher level. Josh Bailey, Alec Poso, they have to show big numbers over a full year, and haven't quite yet. They might this year, and of course John Tavares is showing he can be all-world, and fully expect him to score at least 50 here, but he can't do it alone, and he just needs help from the next 2 lines, and they need a little more size on defense. I think they missed Mark Streit a little bit in the early going. You could see they're a little tentative on the power play. he helped stabilize that a lot. He and Wisnowski were very strong last year together. They're missing a little something there, but it's early, and they play tough in every game. They lost a couple of shootouts, and those are essentially ties that go to a gimmick ending. But they've been in every game, and they look good, but a lot of questions over a long season.
All right, now talking, of course, to Alan Krita, contributing NHL writer for the New York Times. When you talk about teams in New York, obviously a hockey team, the first one that comes to mind is the Rangers. They've gone through a lot of change, a lot of transition over the course of the offseason, a new coach, a new system. How has that transpired onto the ice? I mean, last night was only their second victory of the season, and that came against the Washington Capitals, a high-power offense. Henrik Lundqvist getting the shutout. How has Alain Vigneault's system right now translated into success for the New York Rangers?
So far, 2 out of 6 games, 2 out of 6 were good. 4 out of 6 were not good. Growing pains, most likely. All the travel. Also hard to get a handle on where they stand. I mean, they're missing Rick Nash. Clearly, as usual, if Henrik Lundqvist stops every shot or almost every shot, they have a 90% chance of winning. So, as it did through the whole Tortorella era, it always seemed to come down to his play and how good it was. Last night was a perfect example. He's had the Capitals number for some time now. He's the third straight shutout. But this is the same team that got blown off the ice by the Ducks, by the Sharks, not to a lesser degree by the Blues, and by the Coyotes. Very hard to say still because the games have been all over the place. I think the Rangers are clearly more comfortable in the Eastern Conference. We'll see those matchups bode well for them in the next few weeks. But it does take time to get used to a new system. They were under the Tortorella spell for 4.5 years. Defense first, offense second, shackling the stars, shackling Marian Gabourik's offensive prowess. Nash to a degree. Richards, of course, we all know what happened last year with him. So it's a big change. It has to take at least 10, 15, 20 games to see a difference. And they need their weapons. Without Rick Nash, they're a totally different team than they are with Rick Nash.
Well, you bring up Brad Richards, and we all know, of course, what happened to him last season, getting benched towards the end of the playoffs. But he had a pretty good game last night, another good, solid effort, 2 assists. He assisted on both the Rangers' goals. How has his play been affected for the positive under Alain Vigneault in New York this season?
Well, he definitely seems to be more relaxed, playing his game. Last year, he was completely not himself. It may have been a product of the lockout, and he admitted he wasn't in the best shape. He probably didn't get to train where he usually trains. The training camps last year were a joke. There really weren't any. And, the players had to push the lockout and go to the limit and all that. They paid the price. Some guys really paid the price for that physically. And it appeared he was one of them. And now he seems to be back to himself to a large degree. He trained really hard over the summer. He worked with the same hard-edged fitness people that Marty St. Louis works with in Connecticut, and we see what Marty St. Louis' career has been like, and when those two were together, they were dynamic. So Brad Richards is definitely looking like the old Brad Richards, and Alain Vigneault just says, go play your game, and he's been doing that, scoring goals, setting up goals. Looks like a totally different player than a year ago. But as with everything last year, I throw out more than 50% of what we saw in the lockout season. It was short. It was intra-conference. Everything was not normal from top to bottom. So it's almost like it didn't happen in a lot of ways. And he's a perfect example of that so far. But again, 6 games.
Right.
After 46 games.
Of course. Now, we're talking, of course, to Alan Krita, the contributing NHL writer for the New York Times. Talk about the power play and the penalty kill for the New York Rangers this year to last. I mean, obviously, we all know the Rangers' problems, their penalty woes in terms of the power play and how bad they've been over the last couple of years. What has Alain Vigneault tried to do in order to combat that problem that the Rangers as a team have faced over the last few years?
Well, for one, he brought in a coach specifically to work on the power play, Scott Arniel, former Columbus coach. Of course, didn't have tremendous success with the Blue Jackets, but he's known as an innovator offensively. And Alain Vigneault said, okay, here are the reins on the power play. Do what you have to do. And with Tortorella, he was trying to do everything. He was control freak to a degree, and he had Mike Sullivan, who was overwhelmed as an assistant, trying to do too much. And I think just the direct responsibility, he's a coach, and they haven't had tremendous success yet. Of course, they haven't scored that many goals yet, but I think they'll find their way. Michael Del Zotto should be an offensive weapon on the power play. There's no reason they can't use Ryan McDonough, even Dan Girardi. These guys are big shots back there. They have weapons. It's just a matter of how to use them. If Brett Richards keeps that prowess going, and we see Rick Nash, that's a pretty good start for power play. They had enough confidence last year. They looked lost. They were playing in almost a scared way towards the end of the season. They just couldn't generate anything, and they didn't know how to, and the confidence level was down the drain. And penalty killing, they sort of always excelled at that. I think that's a byproduct of the defense first they played all the years with Tortorella. So the penalty killing was very aggressive, blocking every shot, and really not letting other teams get much on them. We saw them shut down Ovechkin in the playoffs and company last year. So I don't expect that to get any worse. It should pretty much stay the same. They still have the same hard-working Ryan Callahans and Brian Boyles and Taylor Pyatt that do kill penalties really well, no matter the style of play. So they just have to pick up the power play and make teams fear it. And that's something they really didn't do last year. They didn't really have to do it the year before when they got to the conference finals. They were winning games 2-1, 3-2, and they were getting goals from everywhere. But to play an offensively flowing system, you really have to have a power play that makes a difference and gets you that goal or two a game most of the time.
Now, for Coach Alain Vigneault, of course, we're talking with Alan Creed, a contributing NHL writer for the New York Times, with the new coach in New York. And obviously he's coming from Canada, coming from where everybody, believes that hockey is the sport of the gods, and if you don't win, then that's the end of that. And we saw a lot of that happen with Vigneault in Vancouver, where they won the President's Cup trophy a couple times, but they couldn't really advance too far in the playoffs. How is he handling the pressures of New York, the pressures of playing hockey on Broadway?
So far, he seems to be really enjoying it. He's all smiles. Of course, he hasn't actually played the game or been behind the bench at Madison Square Garden yet. The Rangers' first home game isn't until October 28th. Because of the continuing renovations at the Garden. So he's even admitted it's kind of unusual that his very first experience behind the bench at a game will be a regular season debut game at the Garden. So it's all been almost sort of from the sidelines, talking about living in Manhattan. He lives on the Upper West Side. He's figuring out the traffic patterns and driving in Manhattan, which has got to be a far cry from Vancouver, where he was for the last 7 years. So he just seems to be all smiles, laughing all the time, except for the nights they lose, and enjoying being here in a different time zone, different part of the league. No fear at all of that. He's been pleasant with the media to deal with. Totally different dynamic again than the last few years. It's just a different personality, and he so far seems to be reveling in it. Of course, he has to succeed. If they're 12 games under 500 in the middle of January, I'm sure he won't be smiling as much, but so far, so good.
All right. Well, thanks, Alan Creeda, for your time and your insights to the hockey situation in New York, and get safe there to the Nassau Coliseum, to the Islanders game tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. No problem. That was Alan Creeda, the contributing NHL writer for the New York Times, joining us here on All Noise Radio, joining us here on Sports Talk. Of course, the New York Rangers, they beat the Washington Capitals last night 2-0. They are now 2-4-0, having won 2 out of the first 6 games of their 9-game road trip to open up the NHL season. 3 games left on the road trip, and it sure looks like it will favor them. I mean, last night, if anything was to give any credence to how they would fare back on the Eastern time zone, it certainly looked very, very positive, as Henrik Lundqvist had his 47th career shutout and was certainly looked like the stopgap that was needed. Well, that's all for tonight. We'd like to thank our guests for coming on, Alan Creeda, and of course, Alan Creeda of the New York Times, and of course, Ari Bluestein, the voice of the Drexel Dragons and CEO of SFBN High School Sports Network, and as well as your calls and your texts and your tweets. That's it for me, and next week tune in for another fantastic episode of Sports Talk with the Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio is an internet radio station that's fully produced by graduates of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. From modern rock to old school hip hop, country to classical, news, talk, sports, and more. It's the noise you can't ignore. Log on to allnoiseradio.com. Fire up the station. Find out more about your favorite jocks. Get the latest CSB news and more. Plus, you can take All Noise Radio with you on the go for free. Just download the Live 365 app to your iPhone, iPod Touch, or BlackBerry and search All Noise Radio. Check out tomorrow's broadcasters today at allnoiseradio.com. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.